Welcome to the Pilton Palais Cinema Tent. I'm Helen O'Hara, hello. And I am delighted to be joined today to talk about Vanya, Andrew Scott.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Wow.
Hi.
Hey, look at all these gorgeous sun-kissed faces. It's just
Sunburned
like being in
faces.
Russia.
Yeah, including mine. This is so cool. The weather's so great, isn't it?
Okay, so can I just get like a quick straw poll? Who here has seen Vanya either live on stage,
my
on
God,
the NT
wow.
Live the other night here? That's a really good. Okay, so we are going to ask some Vanya questions.
Yeah, and
We're
we can
not just
talk
gonna have
other
to-
questions as well. for the
and
people
other
who
questions as
haven't.
well. And we will take
Don't know
some
what the hell we're
questions
talking
from
about.
you in the audience. So please get your thinking caps on and, have some. There's nothing worse than like going, right, now audience questions, and everyone's like, no. So tell me about this very ambitious, very daring, interesting idea. Because you were involved in, coming up with this whole approach, weren't you?
So for those of you who don't know, we did a version of the Chekhov play, Uncle Vanya, and we ended up doing a one-man version of it. And it sort of started as an accident, because the Simon Stevens and Sam Yates, the writer and the director, had this idea that they wanted me to play Vanya, which is one of the parts in it, or Astrov, which is another one of the parts of it. There's two great male parts in it. And so we did a little bit of a reading of it, and they read the other parts. And then for some reason, because we misallocated the parts, and I ended up doing a couple of scenes playing myself. And I was like, we were in the sort of swing of it, and I thought, I'll just continue just acting with myself. And they were like, that's kind of interesting, because those characters you think are actually quite different, but they're actually more similar than you might imagine. And they said, why don't you try reading Sonia, which is a very famous Chekhov part? And I did that, and then we sort of whittled it down, and they were like, is it 2 people, is it 4 people, is it 1 person? And then the whole idea of the production is that we talk so much about how different we are to each other, particularly in, in contemporary life. We're talking about, there's so much identity politics about who we are, and he's talking an awful lot in the play about these people who are actually very similar to each other, that live and work and love each other, work with and love each other, and they're all talking about how much they're different, and this is my pain. And actually, when it's one person who's talking about it, it becomes a little bit absurd, because you think, well, everybody's job, everybody's situation is much more similar than we might imagine. So that I suppose the idea is that all of us, even though we think we're very different to other people, we actually contain multitudes, and it's all there within us. So if you've got a bit of empathy within you, you can maybe find all those different types of people within you. So I ended up playing 9 characters.
Not just a glory grab, but that's,
No, well, that's what my concern was, is that it just seems a bit greedy.
But was it a difficult rehearsal process then to get, did you go kind of character by character? Did you go through the play? How did you kind of break it down?
It was really fascinating. We created it right from the beginning altogether. So we sort of co-directed or co-created and even co-wrote it. And so it's like, how do you convey all these different types of people without the audience being really, really confused? So we started off with just the idea that some characters might have maybe a chain or a ball that they might bounce, or a pair of sunglasses, just very simple things. And then bit by bit, we discovered that the audience actually very quickly understand. I love the idea of allowing the audience to use their intelligence and not spoon feed them everything. Yeah. And so bit by bit, the audience just know immediately, and the things that you think you really need to make clear, actually you don't. And sometimes it's just a tiny little move of the head. And so the exercise actually was in paring it back rather than necessarily making it more extravagant. Yeah. And I love the idea of storytelling as a really, really pure form. I love the idea that actually you could do Vanya here. Will I do it now? No. But you could, that if you just have a room full of people and you have a creative imagination and you actively ask the audience to engage, that's when an audience really sits forward. And what was so extraordinary about Vanya was that the quality of silence in the room was really, because they were like, I have a task here. And I think audiences, we hate when you're like, oh yeah, we get it, because you're being told everything and you don't have any work to do.
Yeah. But how about for you personally? Was it difficult to kind of keep up the energy? Because usually, you're getting so much
Yeah.
reaction from
Yeah.
your fellow cast on stage, maybe backstage as well. You're probably chatting and stuff between scenes. So how do you kind of maintain the pace, the energy, the feel?
Yeah. I miss the other actors. I love the other actors usually, and that's the people you have all the fun with. And so it was a very solitary experience. And it was very exhausting. I think it's 2 hours of just, me talking to myself. It's good because if you make a mistake, you can rectify it in your head. You don't have to give, like, usually if you make a mistake, you're like trying to convey your deepest apologies to the other actor for cutting 4 pages. And then you think, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go back. And so it allowed it to be free in that sense. And I loved it, actually. It's just, it felt like going into a sort of weird trance, because I never really leave the stage. Actually, there's one point in it where there was one incident that happened when we were in the West End, and I was in the middle of this big ranty speech just before he takes out a gun, not to spoil the spoilers, but it is a famous place, so people know there's a gun in it. But anyway, I was really, really involved in it, and the next thing, the stage manager came on stage really, really quickly with his headset on, and I literally screamed. I went, "Wah!" like this. And he came on, and I had never seen anybody else on the stage first, and he'd come on because somebody in the audience had heart problems, and they needed to get this person out. He turned out to be absolutely fine. He was like, "Andrew, please leave the stage." And I was like, "Yeah." And it was such an extraordinary thing, because I was in the wings, and I was thinking, I was completely somewhere else, without sounding pretentious about it. But you do go into this kind of, like the way kids do, when you see kids just completely involved in their imagination. And when it's just you, I suppose you just go into this real trance. And for the first time, that experience really showed me that in the wings, I was like, God, this is so weird. And then I had to go back and sort of try and get back into it. And that was a difficult thing to do. So it was very immersive.
Yeah, just to pick up the energy again,
Pick up the energy,
and find that moment.
Yeah.
Jeez,
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Which character was it you were screaming as? Do you remember?
It was Vanya himself.
It was Vanya,
It was actually and the stage manager was like, "When do I interrupt him?" So she decided to go before I hit the big climax.
Yeah,
so that's great expertise of stage management there.
So, I mean, you've been doing this incredible mix of film, TV, theatre recently. We had All of Us Strangers. Anybody here last night for that? Yes, amazing. Like Ripley recently, going back a few years, Present Laughter, Fleabag. It's been kind of like, does it feel like a roller coaster to you? Does it feel like it's been kind of non-stop recently?
It does.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
It does. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's a real dream, because it's TV and it's film and it's theatre. It's all the stuff that I want to do, and maybe a little bit of voice work. And that's the stuff. For me, it's always just been about just playing as many different notes as you possibly can, and playing all the instruments in the orchestra. I've never done a huge amount of long form television with one character. I kind of like to move around a bit and move the different forms of drama as well. So I love changing it all up. But yeah.
So when you say long form, like how does something like Ripley, what was that, 8 hours?
That's 8 hours, but it's a limited series. Yeah,
yeah.
But exactly. And so I haven't been in a TV series for season upon season. I suppose it just hasn't worked out that way for me, and I was part of that, I suppose, is by design. But yeah, I love all the idea that you don't really know what you're gonna be doing, and you can really just immerse yourself into it more, because it's not necessarily going to be forever.
Yeah. And what for you has felt like the big kind of, I don't know, breakthrough moments? I don't know if that's the right word, but like the moments where your career kind of stepped up a gear,
It's all about visibility. I don't know. There's maybe some actors here or people who want to get into acting. Maybe not. Don't do it, people. Don't do it. But I think, I don't know, success as an actor is spoken about in a very sort of, I think, misleading way sometimes, because there's an awful lot of actors who work for years and years and years and work a lot, but are not recognizable to the public. But I suppose what recognizability does is it gives you more choice as an actor. I suppose the first thing that really, where my face became recognizable was after Sherlock, when I did Sherlock, and that was a really big thing to get used to, actually. And I don't know. I think I manage it pretty well. And, you know, you just keep it private and you do the.
Just keep trucking on.
You keep trucking on. But I was very lucky in Sherlock because I felt like the reason I got cast in that was because I wasn't well known. You know, they were looking to sort of surprise the audience, and so for that reason, it helped that people weren't familiar with my face.
And we have Simon Pegg backstage.
Yeah.
You were both on Band of Brothers back in the day,
Yeah,
weren't you?
yeah.
That was a very, very tiny
Yeah.
baby. I just rewatched it recently, and I'm
You
like,
did?
hey, look,
Yeah,
it's him.
I was the guy in green.
You were the guy, yeah.
Yeah.
One episode didn't go so well, but you know.
Yeah, one episode. Yeah, I was happy to wrap that up.
Was it very difficult? It looked very
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Have I got any questions from the audience? Because we've got a few more minutes. Okay, I'm going to prioritize the front row because I can reach them with a microphone, if I'm honest.
I watched it Glasgow, and it was great.
Really?
Yeah, Vanya. I just wanted to ask about, obviously, it's very Route One, like presenting those characters with like a prop or something to hold or that kind of necklace. You do lots of different things in terms of how you present those characters, using the space in interesting ways, different cues. I just wondered how you workshop that with Simon and the other director. How did that?
I think the thing that's really important is to make as many mistakes as possible and not to be afraid of making an idiot out of yourself. Because like a lot of the stuff, I think it's really important to make an idiot out of yourself and to get it wrong and to be like really, really explore the idea of something and to have the courage to be embarrassed in front of other people and go, I'm going to try this, and everybody to be like, don't do that. And then you really know that doesn't work. So it means you can sort of dive. It's kind of like when you're in a swimming pool, you're able to sort of ricochet off the swimming pool wall with real conviction and dive into the next, swim into the next idea kind of with much more energy because you've really explored the idea of that. And that's why it's really gratifying that it's worked, because it's such an insane idea that it feels wonderful that the audience actually get it. And it was such a real, genuine exercise in trusting an audience, really, really trusting the imagine that actually, it's something I say a lot, but stillness on the stage, if somebody was to stand stock still and just stare out at the audience, the different perceptions of what the character might be thinking would be so wide-ranging, it really is. So again, I think it's leaving a little bit of room for that and just trying to be inventive and how to sing a little bit in it and just using the piano and what's going to, there's a character in Vanya of his dead sister, and it's how to me she's always been such an important part of the character, important part of the play, and how you bring the memory of somebody who is such a central character to the play alive without ever seeing them. It's a really fascinating sort of question. Yeah, thanks.
Hi. So one of the nice things about Vanya is obviously it was in the cinema, so I feel like it was quite accessible for like a broad range of people. But I think theatre generally at the moment is not necessarily accessible for younger people just due to pricing and stuff like that. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that and on ways that you think theatre can be made sort of more accessible for people. Yeah,
I mean, it's very true. It's I think that you can't make no matter how zeitgeisty you think your theatre is, if you have to pay £350 to go to a play, and young people under the age of 30, or even not just under the age of 30, are just not going to be able to afford to go. But without being too pessimistic about it, I do think things like NT Live, I mean, we can't ignore the fact that we're in the middle of Glastonbury and we're talking about a play. I think that's really important, and it's because of initiatives like NT Live. But I do think it comes on it's an individual thing, and I think both performers and producers have to take that into account when you're if there's some sort of initiative. I often think it's like when you go into TK Maxx and you're looking for something and you have to just do a little bit of routing to find something that's just as valuable as you might if you were in Harvey Nichols. You just have to put that out there so that people go, well, where can I do that? And not just the seats up in the gods, but put them right at the front. But I really applaud things like NT Live, because I think internationally, Chekhov, who I really believe is a fully resonant and relevant playwright, who's funny, and people have a real misconception about what Chekhov is. They think it's really serious. It's, you know, this Russian guy. It's so funny and it's so humane. And the fact that that can be seen globally across the world, to me, is mind-blowing. So it's not all doom and gloom, I don't think.
Hi. First, like, amazing work. Like, I've never seen something so incredible, genuinely. And it made me think of a joke that we have, like, in Brazil, when someone is, like, with all due respect, quite unhinged.
No, no. I'll take that.
We say, like, oh, I hope this person never gets therapy. And, like, never
wow, okay, easy
treats
target.
themselves. No. But, like, in the best way possible, because it made me think, like, do you feel like you had to connect psychologically to every character? Because, like, it's so interesting how when you're watching, you see, like, for example, people falling in love and like betraying each other. And I truly believed, I was like, I can't believe that I'm feeling a connection between two people, but it's actually one person playing them. So I just wonder, like, how was your process for this? Because I thought it was amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. I think we're much more similar to each other than we allow ourselves to believe, and particularly when it comes to casting. You think, oh, well, because I don't look like that person. And so when there's no costume for each character, or when, you know, if you're playing people of different classes, or people of different sexes, or people of different ages, it allows the audience to, like when you're reading a book, you have an ability to be able to just picture the way that character might be for yourself. So it becomes incredibly personal. So if I'm putting too much on it for the audience, it's sort of, that's where I think it could become a little bit self-indulgent, and that's what my big fear was. So that if you're playing a woman, that in some way you're, you know, that you're playing, you're just showing off your ability to morph into somebody else. When actually, I feel like Helena, for example, is a very alpha character, and so why the attempt, I suppose, the lazy attempt would be like, oh, well, it's a woman, so you have to play somebody with it. And actually, I think she's got quite a rooted voice, and your sensuality or your sexuality just emerges, but it's not something that you do. It's not something you sort of knock over the head. And actually, some of the male characters are much more subservient to her, and to just not to go down the easy route, I think, and I suppose just to go to where I might have those people, you know, sort of within me. I think it's a great myth about, and a great mistake sometimes in casting, that you cast people purely on the way that they look rather than necessarily their energy or their spirit. And that's what the thing that you're always trying to explore, like another part of yourself. That you know, even I look like whatever way I look. So the opportunity to play these characters just seemed completely miraculous.
You've had all these amazing projects of late, which we know you from, Andrew, but I would love to know where it all started. Was there like a terrible play that you were in when you were a graduate?
Oh, there were a number of them.
Go on, tell us about one.
Well, I started when I was a kid. The reason I started was because I was very shy. I think it's another myth about actors that they're very outgoing and sort of, you know, tap dancing, you know, prodigies. And I wasn't like that at all. In fact, the reason I was sent, my mom sent me because I was, you know, I was okay at home, but when I got out of, you know, when I had to deal with people, I was very, very shy. And something happened when I went to these little drama classes in Dublin where you had to do improvisations or poems in front of the other kids. And I would be so really genuinely terrified. But then something would happen where you could sort of be you, but a different version of you, and I felt okay, and then I would forget about that, and then the next week I'd be shaking again, which has continued, you know, night by night in the theatre. That happens. It's still the same sort of thing. But yeah, I feel really grateful actually that before that I had too much scrutiny, you know, or to be well known, that I would been in loads of these plays, loads of tours. Again, for people who are starting acting, I think the most important thing, there's no real difference in the feeling of doing a play with your local theatre group than there is standing on the National Theatre stage. It's still exactly, of course, there's a difference in the atmosphere somewhat, but the feeling for the performer is exactly the same. And so I would encourage anybody to just be proud no matter what stage you're on. A stage is a stage. It doesn't matter if it's a tiny little stage or you're just doing it with your friends. To be able to do that is such a human and wonderful and instinctive thing for human beings to do. So all that stuff that I got to do when nobody was looking, I still use. I go, I've actually played a sort of character like this, but nobody has ever seen it. But it's in my suitcase of things that I've sort of packed away a bit. So I feel grateful for all the terrible work that I've done, because you always learn something, you know.
Okay, I realise everyone's asking really deep questions, but I just love to know your letterbox top 4.
My letterbox top 4. That is so cruel. If you knew my hangover, I'm not going to be able to answer that. I'm trying to think of any film that I've ever seen. I'm going to say Past Lives is in there. E.T., Punch Drunk Love, All of Us Strangers.
Absolutely.
Laziness. It's only because the director's in the room.
I'm so sorry, but we do have to wind it up because we're about to have a Shaun of the Dead, I think, as well. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your questions.
Thank you so much for
Andrew
coming
Scott.
out. Have a great Glastonbury. Thank you so much. Honestly, so lovely that everybody came. Thank you.